Hello and welcome to the Rank and Report football show from Washington, D.C. to London, England. I am your host, Adam Booker, and I'm joined, as I always am, by Mr. Charlie Gordon. How you doing, Charlie?
Spectacular, mate. Yeah, could it be better, really? I think we should note, first of all, that we're recording this with the Champions League last 16 games going on downstairs. We're just putting... You've got to get that bread, Adam. That's what you've got to do these days. You've got to rise and grind, and that is exactly what we're doing. So I hope the audience appreciates that.
Yes. While everything we will talk about today will be fully relevant, we will be about 3 hours behind on scoreline. So the PSG Barca game is on at the moment, as well as RB Leipzig and Liverpool. But everything we're going to talk about today won't factor those in, and everything will still be relevant. So do not fear. But yeah, I'm happy to be back with a brand new edition of the European Power Rankings. Before we get into that, I just want to encourage everybody to hit the subscribe button down below if you're not already subscribed. Leave a comment, hit the like button, let us know your thoughts, what club you support, what you think the top 10 should be, anything you think we want to hear, leave it down below. And make sure you hit that notification bell to be notified whenever we release a new video. I'm really looking forward to this top 10, Charlie. We've got some new entrants and some good stories as well. It's not just, statistics and goals and shots and what have you. We've got some good stories today.
So many reasons to look forward to it. We've gone with a couple of hipster choices that are actually justified to be in there. Another reason is I've had a lovely lockdown trim, so I'm feeling really just on point today. I've been out of the house today. We did a bit of work in like a TV studio, so I'm feeling really, my flamboyance level is turned up to 100 at the moment. So the stars are aligning for quite an incredible show today, Adam, I'd say.
I love it. Let's see if we can keep that energy going for the next 30 or 40 minutes. But let's hop right into it with number 10 of our brand new European Power Rankings, and that is Sporting Lisbon, Charlie. I am so excited to have them in our top 10. I do believe they've featured before, maybe very early on in the season. They came in at 10 or 9. But look, they're flying in Portugal at the moment. They're sitting atop the league. The recent results were a 2-1 win against Santa Clara, a 0-0 draw against Porto, always a tough game, and then a 2-0 win versus Portimonense. Look, we could go into statistics, goals scored, all that kind of stuff, but this is really a great story. Sporting haven't won a league title since 2002, but they're one of Portugal's biggest clubs. It's crazy they haven't won a league title that long. You think about the talent that has come through, just think about Cristiano Ronaldo for a start. This is a huge club. This is a great story. Only a few years ago, we saw these crazy scenes where the fans were unhappy with the club president and the players, and they broke into the training ground and they literally beat up the players. And from that moment on, you had players canceling their contracts because of that. You think of Rui Patricio, Gelson Martins, William Carvalho. These are like world-class footballers that just cancel their contracts from one of the biggest clubs in Portugal because of this, blatant attack from the fans. But you come on to this season and they're top of the league, 9 points clear of any of their rivals. And, this is a really high-quality squad, Charlie. You've got the likes of Pedro Gonçalves, who's got, 15 goals in the league this season. Around him you've got just like all these quality professionals like Pedro Porro, who's on loan from City. He's having a great season as well. And look, they're unbeaten, 9 points clear, and it's smooth sailing in Lisbon.
It definitely seems that way, and it is bizarre, really, to onlookers because they have long been considered the third best team in Portugal, behind Porto and Benfica, and I think even Braga might have been up there before the last time Sporting Lisbon were up there, but it really did surprise me to learn that they hadn't won a league title in Portugal since 2002. That is incredible. So yeah, coming from the status of being third best team in Portugal to do what they're doing this season, they're really doing it in style. Like me and you go on about teams like PSG getting into this top 10 list because of how we view the French league. Well, how about the Portuguese league? That's kind of, you're really looking at maybe the 6th or 7th best league in Europe there. But the way they're going about their business is just ridiculous. I think they're still undefeated after 22 league games, and they're just streaking clear of the pack which contains Porto, who, as we all saw last night, dismissed Juventus in the Champions League. So a lot of crazy stuff going on in Portugal. Huge credit to Sporting Lisbon. And I'm sure their supporters are going to be going absolutely wild when they do see it over the line, because it is certainly looking that way, Adam.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a shame that those supporters can't be in the ground for these games, to see their team finally get back to the top. I think it's worth mentioning that their closest rivals, like you said, for the title, like your Portos, Benficas, and Bragas, are all in European football, so they're playing 3 games a week. And, Benfica's not... Actually, I believe they're in the round of 16 in the Europa League now. But Sporting actually kind of dreadfully went out to Lask in the Europa League playoffs. So they've had no European football all season, which I think might be, a blessing really for them, because they've been able to just focus on the league and look at where it's got them. So yeah, exciting times for Sporting. Hopefully they can keep this run going and wrap up that league title as soon as possible. But I believe it is time to move on to number 9, Charlie.
Definitely number 9. We've got another hipster choice. I'm just over the moon to say it, and I think when we mentioned these hipster choices at the beginning, one or two of people might have twigged that in this week of all weeks, we are going to include Rangers. And I think it's long overdue, to be honest. The Scottish Premier League, the SPL, really is one of the more obscure leagues in Europe, but they've been crowned champions this week, Rangers. They've been crowned champions with Steven Gerrard at the helm. They are undefeated. What's their record? Undefeated in the league after 32 games played. And just to really illustrate the scale of their dominance, in those 32 games, they've scored 77 goals and conceded 9. They've conceded 9 in 32 games. So, to say they're dominating that league is just a massive understatement. Their last 2 fixtures, not that it really matters, are they beat Livingston away 1-0 and they won 3-0 at home to St Mirren. Sprinkle that in with a 9-5 aggregate victory over Royal Antwerp in the Europa League, which they're also going well in. And basically, it's been a dream couple of weeks for Rangers. It's been a dream season, really. A lot of talk about Steven Gerrard now potentially moving to Liverpool. That's all hype. But you can't deny, Adam, it's been a fantastic week for Rangers. They've been flirting with this top 10 for a few weeks now, and I think this is definitely the week to get them in there.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning that for, maybe a month now, every week we've just, I would say we've been a little bit upset and unfair to Rangers to not get them in to this top 10, because they deserve to be in there. But look, anybody who watches this show week after week will know that I love a good story. And this is a great story because, you've got Celtic, who wins 9 leagues in a row. They're looking for 10 leagues in 10 years, which would be unbelievable, or 10 seasons, sorry. And, Rangers, who we're talking a decade ago, went into administration. They're down in the 3rd tier of Scottish football, and this is, second or the biggest Scottish football club in Scotland, and they're now running away with the title. It helps, obviously, that Celtic have been dreadful this year, but when you look at this team, there's goals all throughout this team. You've got James Tavernier, who's on 11 in the league, and then you've got Alfredo Morelos and Kamar Roof each on 10. So look, they deserve to be in this top 10 because they are absolutely flying.
Definitely, it's a great story, and I would clarify, I don't know if you said they were the second biggest team in Scotland, but we don't want any Glaswegian haters on this channel. I think they're actually very kind of evenly matched in terms of size, stature, and supporter base. But like you said, back in 2012, down in the 3rd tier. Yeah, sorry, Adam. I just wanted to clear that up because they can get quite ferocious.
I did say second or biggest, and if we had Celtic in this top 10, I would say second or biggest. Therefore, I'm hitting a positive note for both fan bases there.
Yeah, good. And I think the fact I had to clarify there tells the story in itself about the rivalry that goes on up there. But it's Rangers' time now. They've absolutely battered the league. And it's just great stuff, really. So, yeah, deserving to be in this number 9 spot.
Absolutely. All right, moving on to number 8, we have got Real Madrid, who were previously ranked number 7. They've dropped back one ranking. The recent results were a 1-1 draw in the Madrid derby against Atleti, and then a 1-1 draw against Real Sociedad. As Charlie and I know, and we've spoken about on this show before, those are probably the 2 toughest games you can get in Spanish football, Sociedad and Atleti. And they had that 1-0 win away at Atalanta in the round of 16 of the Champions League. Look, I feel like it's kind of the same old story every week with Real Madrid. They kind of just keep scraping by the skin of their teeth. I think we've seen that without Karim Benzema, they don't really have a goal threat. We know that Casemiro is second on the list of the scoring charts for them, which, we talked about it on our Real Madrid club rebuild last week, that they need to get some more goal threats on the pitch. But look, like we said before, the experience and just the nous of this team, it keeps them in every competition.
Yeah, and I think, the nous, the experience kind of showed in that 1-1 draw to Atletico. Because basically Benzema and Casemiro, they kind of combined and they just had the composure to finish off that well-worked move. And it really is the same story with Madrid. I mean, I'm happy to move on fairly quickly because we're very critical of Madrid. Me and you, we're fairly critical, but they do tend to come up with the goods more often than not. But yeah, every time I look, no one is supporting Benzema in the goals charts. And at the end of the day, Adam, they still sit third in La Liga. I don't think any Madrid fan would be happy with third. Really, from year to year, there's only 3 teams in that title race in La Liga, if we're being realistic. So Real Madrid are essentially bottom of their own little mini league at the top there. So in the grand scheme of things, they shouldn't be too pleased with how this season's gone. But week to week, especially in the last few weeks, Adam, they keep getting those decent results. And like you said, to draw to Sociedad and Atletico Madrid might seem disappointing to some, but they're 2 extremely good results. So they've not done badly enough to get off this list, Madrid. They're just ticking along. Who knows, they might edge it to second at the end of this season, but they're ticking along. That's all I can say about them.
Yeah, I think for Madrid fans, it's I wouldn't say it's a throwaway season, but I think you've already got to be looking ahead to the summer and see what kind of changes are going to be made, because you got a lot of people out of contract, and yeah, it should be interesting to see where we go from there. But like you said, there's not that much to say on them at the moment, really. They, like you said, they just keep ticking along, so we'll see where they go from here.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they've got any sense in their head, Real Madrid, they will go and listen to our rebuild video, because we had some absolutely fantastic suggestions on there. So anyway, number 7, we've got a team that hasn't featured too often here, and that is Chelsea. Chelsea are going extremely well under their new manager, Thomas Tuchel. Obviously, this is the first time they've featured in this list under Tuchel, and they weren't featuring for an awful long time when they had Frank Lampard at the helm, because things did kind of go south. And the love that Chelsea fans have for Lampard meant they were kind of reluctant to get behind Tuchel, to even acknowledge that he's improved the team. But from what I can see as an outsider who is fairly neutral towards someone like Frank Lampard, the team has just improved an incredible amount. It really has. When I see them now, Chelsea, they're looking like an extremely solid team. And it's incredible that can happen so quickly after a manager comes in. Tuchel's been in charge for 11 games and they've only conceded 2 goals in that time. And when you look at their last 3 games, there was a 1-0 win at Anfield, which Mason Mount absolutely lit up and scored a great goal. A 2-0 win at home to Everton, who are also going for top 4, and a 1-0 win away, in inverted commas, to Atletico Madrid in the Champions League. To find 3 results like that in a row, that is absolutely fantastic. And I rate Thomas Tuchel's impact on Chelsea. I think he's done a fantastic job extremely quickly. What do you think about it, Adam?
Yeah, look, I mean, the Tommy Tuchel revolution is upon us right now. For him to come in and literally overnight transform this team. And one thing that I think is so impressive is he hasn't come and made this team this, attacking juggernaut, or, all this talk was he's going to be able to speak German to Timo Werner and Kai Havertz and finally get them on the same page and all this stuff. But really what he's done is he's come in and he has just made them so solid and so efficient. And I think that's a really impressive thing to do in such a short amount of time. With that win against Everton the other day, he became the first manager in league history to keep a clean sheet in his first 5 home games. That's really impressive when you think that this is not a guy that started with this club at the beginning of the season. He came in the middle of a season when they were in a bad patch of form and like that transformed it. But But look, they control every game so well. They play this 3-4-2-1 formation. And, they're just really solid. They control the game. They find the important goals. I don't think he really has his regular starting 11 yet, but there's so much talent that they can continue to just win and control games while he experiments. And you have to think that when he's got, even a transfer window under his belt and a few more games under his belt, that they could be a really scary team.
Yeah, he's not got a stable 11. He likes to change the attack around quite a lot, but I think what's really, really impressive as a manager is he's come in and he's bought certain players out from the cold. Like some of these players, Marcos Alonso, Andreas Christensen, they've been nowhere near a Chelsea starting lineup spot for the longest time. He came in, he put Alonso in for the first game. He's looked very good. People thought he was totally done. He's put Andreas Christensen in at the centre of a back three. He's looked absolutely fantastic. And I'm going to stop singing Tuchel's praises eventually, but I just think he's been a breath of fresh air for English football, really. He seems like a very intelligent guy, a well-spoken guy, a lover of football, and he's doing extremely well with Chelsea. So, well done to Tuchel, well done to Chelsea. They're making a very good top four push now, Adam.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Chelsea in at number 7, and moving on to number 6, we've got Juventus, who were previously ranked number 9, so they've moved up a bit. Unfortunately for them, that since we made this list and did all of our research and what have you, they had that shocking defeat to Porto yesterday and got knocked out of the Champions League. But look, they did have a big 3-1 win against Lazio, who were flying in the league, and then a 3-0 win against Spezia. I think in the league, at least, they're back to the expected form, after that tough 1-0 loss to Napoli. Ronaldo's continuing to pour in goals. Look, I don't really expect them to challenge for the title anymore. They would essentially, have to win out from here, which they haven't really shown us that they have the capability to do. And they would need Inter to drop points, which they don't look like they have the capability to do. But Juventus still have to play Napoli again in the league, Atalanta, and both of the Milan clubs. Actually, there is a Derby d'Italia, Inter versus Juventus, on the final day of the season. So if Juventus can come within, a stone's throw of that top spot, that could be a very interesting final day.
Definitely. I would love to see that. Absolutely love to see the two Italian heavyweights going head to head. And I think we should also draw attention to the fact, yes, they did crash out to Porto last night, but they did win the game, technically. So I think we can be excused for having them in here at number 6. But yeah, they didn't cover themselves in glory last night in what was an absolutely mesmerising game of football. There were screams here in the Hounslow household, screams, shrieks, oohs and ahs. We were absolutely loving it. And I think one of the players who really caught our eye, to get back on the complimentary vibe with Juventus here, who we've got as the 6th best team in Europe, one of the players who really caught our eye was Chiesa, Federico Chiesa, who, I keep up with their stats every week. I know that Chiesa is really a core element of the pack that supports Ronaldo in terms of goals and assists. I think he's up to 10 goals, 6 assists in all competitions now this season after his brace last night. But he was just tireless. He just ran and ran and ran. And it's kind of like, he was kind of ruthless. He was like a boxer who had his opponent on the ropes. I can't remember the name of the right back he was up against. But, Juve just saw that weakness and they just gave it to Chiesa again and again and again. And his first finish was absolutely spectacular. So Chiesa is a name. He's a young player. He's only on loan at Juventus, I believe, from Fiorentina. And he's still in the process of making a name for himself. But if I want to stress a one to watch in the Juve squad, which is full of, well-known stars, Chiesa would be one of them. I think everyone around Europe should be looking towards Federico Chiesa for someone that's, coming through in the game.
Yeah, it's interesting because I remember early on in the season when Juventus weren't doing very well, we did a video on who we thought the Serie A title favorites were, and I remember when we were talking about Juventus, one of the things that I mentioned was that Chiesa has just not looked like the same guy that he was at Fiorentina. I mean, I watched a lot of him at Fiorentina, and he was so good, and I think that when Juve had initially brought him from Florence, that they thought this guy is the next, Italian superstar, and it didn't didn't turn out like that right away, but he really is turning into that guy. So it's really impressive turnaround from earlier in the season. You have to think he's got a great career ahead of him.
Definitely. And on that note, we move on to the next European giant, which sits at number 5, and that is Barcelona, who have had an absolutely sensational few weeks for them, really. Their last 3 fixtures were a 2-0 win at home, away at Sevilla, a 2-0 win away at Osasuna, and a 3-0 win against Sevilla again to come back from 2-0 down in the semi-final, in the Spanish Cup semi-final. There was a lot of nils there in what I read out, which means Barcelona have been keeping an awful lot of clean sheets lately. Also, Messi is kind of hitting his stride now at this point in the season. He's up to 23 goals, 8 assists after a really slow start, so he's putting in the kind of numbers that we expect from him. But yeah, basically, they're up to second in La Liga now, Adam, which people have really laid into Barcelona this season. Sometimes rightly. Obviously, they've not looked great at times. There's been some players in that starting 11 who arguably shouldn't be in there. A lot of people saying Koeman shouldn't be in the job either. But Atletico have had an unbelievable season. So if Barcelona are to be crowned best of the rest, there's no way that could be considered a failure. So it's kind of weird, isn't it, Adam, that it's all transpired and led up to this point where they sit in second place.
Yeah, it is a bit weird. I've heard of the new manager bounce, but I'd never heard of the new president bounce before. You get this new president in at the club, and it seems like all of a sudden all the fortunes have turned around. But look, like you said, they've been up and down this season. The past 2 weeks, they've been spectacular. Messi was a man on a mission in that Sevilla game. That was a thrilling 3-0 win to come back in that semifinal. And look, you could see from the reaction of those players, especially some of the old heads like Piqué and Jordi Alba, that turnaround in that two-legged tie meant something to this team. And I think at times we see guys like Messi and Piqué just kind of, wandering around thinking about the old days, maybe, like how have we come here as a club? But it looked like that game meant something. And if I'm a Barcelona fan, I'm joyous at that. But look, Messi's now got 19 goals in the league. That's leading the league. So he's not slowing down. And like you said, if they can finish second, I think that would be viewed as a success, especially if they come away now with a Copa del Rey trophy. To finish with a trophy in a season that, is one of their worst seasons we've seen in a long, long time, then, you're really playing with house money there.
Definitely. It would be huge for them to get that finish. They've added some solidity in recent weeks, not conceded any goals in the last 4 games in all competitions. So yeah, Koeman is kind of hitting his stride. So is Messi. And this is the time where you really want the old heads, like you just said. You want them to kind of carry the team through. Use their experience because, maybe they have been sulking at points this season. I feel like there's been a very sulky vibe around the whole club. But, here they are. Let's give them credit for where they are. Especially in the last few weeks, it's been absolutely fantastic for them. So, yeah, Barcelona right up in this list at the moment at number 5.
All right, moving on to number 4. We've got RB Leipzig, who were in the exact same spot 2 weeks ago. This kind of feels like a Real Madrid to me. It's like, what can we say that we haven't said about them all year? But they had a big, impressive 3-0 win against Freiburg at the weekend, and then a 2-0 win against Wolfsburg in the DFB Pokal, and then that 3-2 thrilling come-from-behind win against Borussia Mönchengladbach. Look, I've got pretty extensive notes on all these clubs here in our rankings. These are clubs that I watch week in, week out. But all I have written down for RB Leipzig in all caps is same old, same old.
And what do I do with that, Adam? Well, I've got, luckily for everyone, I've got a few more notes. But yeah, it is, business as usual with Leipzig. I've been telling my friends again in the lead up to the Liverpool game, which is going on at the moment, that you can't write Leipzig off. You can't write them off. Week after week after week, they have been battering the Bundesliga and got within 2 points of Bayern Munich. They're in a real title race now. And they're so far up this list because their recent wins against Gladbach, against Freiburg, who are basically giant killers this season, and against Wolfsburg, who are really having a fantastic season themselves. To win all 3 of those games, 3 out of 3, that's a fantastic couple of weeks. And I think another bit of news that I would love to announce relating to Leipzig is Angelino has finally been caught at the top of their top scorers list. I'm buzzing at this news. I'm absolutely over the moon. Because in all competitions, Christopher Nkunku has finally reached 7 goals, 6 assists. So he's kind of emerging as their new goal scorer and overtaking left-back Angelino, even though he now plays out on the left wing. But he's looked very sharp, very impressive as well in his own right, Nkunku. So yeah, that's what they needed, I think. Some other people to be chipping in with goals. Anyone, just anyone chipping in with any goals whatsoever. But yeah, a great few weeks for Leipzig. A couple of new updates on a team we seem to discuss week in, week out. But yeah, happy for them.
Yeah, like you said, they're 2 points behind Bayern, and that matchup is still to come. So if the gap is still 2 points when they play, I believe it's mid-April, that is going to be a classic Bundesliga game. But I got a question for you, Charlie. I was thinking about this yesterday while watching Erling Haaland rip Sevilla to shreds. Obviously the Red Bull Football Group, they love their players to come through the whole system, New York to Salzburg to Leipzig. What do you think how high would the ceiling have been for this Leipzig team if things had, really gone according to plan and Haaland made the jump from Red Bull Salzburg to Red Bull Leipzig? And instead of going to Dortmund, he's at Leipzig. What would the ceiling for this team be with Haaland up front?
It is a fascinating question, actually. It really is, because there was every possibility that could happen, really. If Haaland hadn't been so good, he would have gone. If he just had a mediocre season for Salzburg, he would have gone to a club like Leipzig. But in short, I just think the sky would be the limit. Like, genuinely, the sky would be the limit. They've got a fantastic manager in Nagelsmann who's so smart, so intelligent, so good tactically, that he's able to just switch his team up week after week. They play pretty football. And we've been saying it all season, Adam, that the one thing they could really benefit from is a ruthless guy up front. I suppose Sorloth is a guy who's not totally dissimilar to Haaland, although they're at several leagues apart. Obviously, I must stress that to you and everyone watching. They're several leagues apart, but I guess that's what they've tried to replicate with a player like Sorloth. But obviously, if they had the real deal in someone like Haaland, it would just be terrifying. I feel like they could do everything, Adam. I feel like they could win the Champions League and the Bundesliga. I don't know. Are you as enthusiastic about that thought as me?
Yeah. I mean, it's a fascinating alternate reality. But I mean, if you think about it, they've been in our top 10 the entire season, bar 2 or 3 weeks, and they've been in our top 5 75% of that season. I mean, they could easily be runaway Bundesliga winners right now. Honestly, they could be that good.
Absolutely. And speaking of the Bundesliga, that segues just gorgeous onto Bayern Munich, who still are down. I say down here because their standards are so high. They're down here as the 3rd best team in Europe. They're top of the Bundesliga, as we have just been talking about, 2 points clear of Leipzig. But they've just battered everyone. In their last 3 games, they have battered them. A 5-1 win at home to Cologne, a 4-2 win at home to Dortmund, which you'll be happy to know, Adam, I actually watched. It's not an English game, but I did watch it. And a 4-1 win at against Lazio as well. Obviously, Lewandowski hat-trick in the Dortmund game. His same old ruthless self. 37 goals in all competitions for the season now, and we've got plenty of weeks left. We've got plenty of time for him to get to 50, and he's actually on course to beat Gerd Muller's record of 40 in the Bundesliga as well. So yeah, 13 goals in their last 3 games, Adam. It's absolutely business as usual for Bayern. They've just been battering people with Lewandowski as the protagonist. It's a tale as old as time, really.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good response after that little drop-off in the league that helped Leipzig close that gap a little bit. And Leipzig are on their heels, but obviously Bayern are still clear favorites to win the league. The 4 unanswered goals against Dortmund, that was an attacking clinic. It's funny, if you went on to Twitter when Haaland put Dortmund up 2-0, everybody, including me, I think I said 4-3, but everybody was saying, well, this has 4-2 Bayern written all over it. And sure enough, Lewandowski, Leroy Sané, they tore that Dortmund defense apart. But yeah, again, it's same old with Bayern. They have their moments of vulnerability at the back, but their attack is just so delicious that it does not matter. It doesn't matter.
It's true. It's true. And it was a very professional job, I think, against Dortmund. The way they didn't lose their cool. They just kind of subdued them in the second half and then slowly but surely just cranked up the pressure. And by the time it was the 85th minute and Dortmund had resorted to parking the bus, I think most people knew basically the writing was on the wall. That's why I'd call it a professional job, really. You know, they just had faith that eventually the pressure would tell. And obviously they got the 3 points in the end. Another guy who impressed me, obviously because I don't watch these games in person very often because I'm horrendously biased towards English football, is Kingsley Coman. I thought he was great. I thought he was really just low centre of gravity, good dribbling, quick, just extremely sharp is what I'd say about Coman. And that's kind of how they've got to be as a Bayern winger because of all the competition. But yeah, Coman is a guy I would single out as being particularly impressive in that game in a few weeks, which has just been amazingly impressive for Bayern overall, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Bayern keep rolling, and they're in at number 3. Moving on to number 2, we have got our boys, Manchester City, who have dropped from their number 1 spot for the first time in maybe a month, 2 months. And that was after a bitter 2-0 loss to United in the derby, but they did bounce back with a 5-2 win against Southampton today, and before that they had a 4-1 win against Wolves at home. Look, it's always tough losing a derby, and it was a very lackluster performance. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer obviously had them set up really well, and obviously he knows how to get a tune out of his team on derby day. But I think if I look at this without my City hat on, you're still 11 points clear in the league. You're still, you're really still in for a quadruple at the moment. So I think the response in the Southampton game today, while they didn't look good in the first half, I think you could really think it's back to smooth sailing from here. I don't see, any more drop points coming anytime soon.
Maybe. I think I was kind of worried seeing the first half of that Southampton game. I thought we looked a bit tired. There wasn't a lot of movement going on, but obviously it cranked up and up in the second half. Phil Foden was fantastic. But I think, the derby is the main talking point here. That's the only reason they're down at number 2 here, City. United, obviously, they ended a record-breaking 21-game winning run and a 28-game unbeaten streak as well. I do think I've got to give Solskjaer credit. He's set his team up really well to kind of... They held that high line and condensed the middle of the pitch. City like to play in between the lines, so they didn't really give us any lines to play in between. Or they just made the space so small that it was just difficult to do. I had a lot of arguments after the game about whether we deserved to win it. I think that's a huge talking point in itself, because I think basically United played as well as they could have played in that game. They set up perfectly. They played much better than they had done in recent weeks, but if my boy Raza Sterling could have just been a competent finisher, it's 2-2. And if, John Stones or Gabriel Jesus gets an inch longer leg and taps in either of those crosses, we walk away with the win. So, yeah, kind of troubling, a painful afternoon for City. In the grand scheme of things, they're still soaring away at the top of the Premier League and looking good in Europe too. So I guess as a token gesture, Adam, we've just knocked them down just to preserve some non-biased image to the wider world.
Yeah, but I think, and this will be a good segue, I think the number 1 team is very deserving to be number 1, so I'm not too upset about it.
Absolutely. The perfect segue into number 1, which is Inter Milan. Inter Milan, who'd have thought they'd be top of Europe? They're not even in the Champions League at the moment. They got knocked out in the group stage, but they're top of Serie A, 6 points clear. Last 2 games were a 2-0 win away at Parma and a 1-0 win at home to Atalanta, who are, a great team in their own right. We very nearly put them in the top 10 this week because they've been having a great few weeks themselves. Lukaku, we all know about Lukaku. He's sensational every time I see him play. 22 goals, 8 assists in all competitions this season. Lautaro Martinez, not too far behind him, 14 goals, 6 assists. And it's a really professional job by Conte. You can't imagine that they'll be caught now. and they've been extremely consistent. The way they've just worked their way up this list week after week. Only recently were they kind of in the top bracket, in the top 3 or 4 in our consideration. But here they are, top, because they just don't stop winning, Adam. They've just been unbelievably consistent in the league, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen this coming for a while, I think. But, you look at their recent run of matches and, you've got games against Lazio, AC Milan, and Atalanta, and they finished that run of games with a 7-1 goal difference. I mean, only giving up 1 goal to the likes of Lazio, Milan, and Atalanta is really impressive. And, we talked earlier on in the season that this back 3 or back 5, they weren't as solid as we expected from a Conte team, but they've turned into an absolute brick wall. And when you're able to keep the ball out of your own net and counterattack with Lautaro, Achraf Hakimi on the right flank, which is just, I mean, he's got to be the best wide player in Europe at the moment. And then obviously Lautaro and Lukaku up front. It's a scary, scary team. And I brought this up last week, but if you give up the first goal against Inter and they can be compact and just wait to pick you off, there's no hope.
Yeah, it's true. And I want to highlight 2 of the players there, Lukaku and Hakimi, because their combination play against Parma was really, really good. This is Parma. This did happen a couple of weeks ago, but look, I have to do my research, guys. I just thought they were fantastic. I think the skill set that Lukaku has pretty much makes him undefendable when he's on form, because if you play it into the feet of Lukaku, what can happen? Hakimi, who is one of the fastest players in the world, can get on the overlap. Lukaku can hold it up. He can feed Hakimi. Bang, you're in behind. If that's not going to happen, Lukaku can just use his strength and pace and just spin behind you himself. And then he's in behind. So those 2 as a combination in particular are just, I feel for any defender that has to deal with that. And when you throw in Alexis Sanchez, who's kind of finding some form again, he's always had really top quality in his Arsenal, Sanchez. But he's kind of proven to be a very useful player for Inter off the bench these days. So yeah, plenty to be excited about for Inter. They've been extremely consistent in recent weeks and basically deserving of being crowned the best team in Europe at this present moment, Adam.
Absolutely. All right, before we wrap up, I want to run through the 10-1 for all of our audio listeners. Coming in at number 10 was Sporting Lisbon. In at number 9, Rangers. 8, Real Madrid. 7, Chelsea. 6, Juventus. 5, Barcelona. 4, RB Leipzig. 3, Bayern Munich. 2, Manchester City. And 1, Inter Milan. Charlie, I have got another interesting question for you that just came to mind right now.
I can't wait.
All right. Close your eyes. Picture this. 90th minute. Champions League final. We'll call them Rank and Report FC. We've got 1 goal. We need 1 goal. All right? We're counterattacking. Would you rather counterattack with the trio of Lautaro Martinez, Romelu Lukaku, and Achraf Hakimi, or Jadon Sancho, Erling Haaland, and we'll say Marco Reus?
God, it's a great question. I wish I could just have these questions fired at me all day. My brain loves these questions. I'm gonna actually go with Lukaku and the Inter boys. I really am, and that is because I love Haaland. He's my favourite player in Europe right now. He really is. But I feel like Haaland gets a load of goals because he gets a load of chances. If I'm staking my life on it, Haaland just takes tons of shots every game. Is he the most efficient? Sometimes he is, but not always. I can see him be a little bit rash with his shots sometimes. Lukaku, I think, has just turned into an absolute machine. And I think there's just a bit more... Obviously, he's got a bit more experience, Lukaku, at the top level. So yeah, just for those reasons, I would go for the Inter boys. What do you think about that?
I think I'm right there with you. I think if this magical football club, Rank and Report FC, needed 1 goal, I think I'd have to go with that Inter lineup. But yeah, it's a fun question. It just popped in my head right there. But we will wrap up there. Before we get out of here, I'd like to encourage all of you to hit the subscribe button down below if you are not already a subscriber. Hit the like button, leave a comment, let us know your thoughts. If you're an audio listener, hit the subscribe button on Apple Podcasts, hit the follow button on Spotify. Tell your mom, tell your dad, pass the show around. That is the best way for us to get our words out to the people. We'll wrap it up there. Charlie, any last words for the people?
All I would say is, if you've got this far, you clearly enjoyed the video. If you've got any tantalising questions like the ones Adam has just asked, you've got this far, think of one. Drop it in the comments. It would certainly make me happy to delve into a couple of them in a future episode or a future video. So, yeah, do something like that. We would definitely appreciate it. Other than that, it's been a pleasure. See you next time.
All right. See you.